Hello, Wisconsin. This is Dana Zulik. The lighting in here is about as bad as it gets, but that's okay. I was out in the sun a lot today, and so here we are. So I've been going through making a list of all the different uh, topics that we can cover because, well, there's a lot to cover, and I want to be able to make episodes that are titled certain things so that I know the main thing that we talk about in that episode is about the topic that if we're in another show and I'm referencing something and you're like, what does that mean, then you can go back and kind of watch that story. So with that being said, my name is Dana Zulik, and I am a combat veteran and a mom, and I operate a clean fill facility, which means we call it the scenic pit. It's a big hole in the ground. We take dirt from construction sites and whatnot. Every night we're going to go over different topics. I've gone over some of the basics. We're going to get into a really big deep dive into how all of the scenic pit controversy started. But for tonight, we're going to talk about the time I got run over in my own driveway. So I guess you have to start at the beginning. And I guess the best way to go about it is to start where I was running for office because of the controversy regarding the scenic pit and the ongoing contention in the Richfield community here in Wisconsin where I live. And so I had ran for office, and I thought to myself, man, I'm having a hard time getting started tonight. Honestly, I thought about this before we got started, guys. This is a little bit of a triggering topic for me. Out of all the terrible things that have happened here since all of this began in 2015, I'd say this by far was really hard to go through. So I'll do my best to keep it together. I also think that if I get a little emotional, that's okay too. It's okay to not be okay, right? So anyways, so let's start from the beginning. I believe it was 2017 when this incident happened. I want to say April. We'll do an episode where we actually watch video from where this all happened. But tonight's just kind of to get it out there in the story, the basic story. So I had ran for the village board a few times. And the reason for me running is every time I would approach people in the community about, our village board and maybe running for office, I just hear it over and over again. I don't want to get on the wrong side of Richfield, or I don't know enough about the government. And I used to know my one buddy, I used to tell him all the time, hey, I would rather have somebody who has to learn how it works and is ethical than people who, quote unquote, know how everything works and are not ethical, right? So it really is important who we're electing, even at our local level, who we're electing as our officials. Okay, so I ran for office, and this particular year, I ran for county supervisor as well. And I actually beat out the incumbent in the primary by 1 vote, and somehow lost. I think I got like 20%, and Rock Bradner got 80 or something like that in the Richfield district. But in the 2 Germantown districts, I did better than Rock Bradner. So it was interesting. But I didn't end up winning. but here we are. We had a couple of referendums on the ballot. We had uh, tried to get direct legislation by petitioning residents about term limits. And I think the term limits on its own probably would have passed just fine. I dropped you. Sorry about that. I think the term limits alone probably would have had a better chance of passing, but we're also trying to get to where there's a 7-person board in the village of Richfield because uh, here in Richfield we have only 5, and 7 is what the statute recommends in Wisconsin, but the board can pass a resolution to only have 5. And their excuse to the community is, oh, we like to keep the government small. And I'm like, well, but that's the difference between like a monarchy and Congress, right? So um, the more representation or the more people on the board is more representative of the community rather than fewer. So we were trying to get that changed too. And I think that kind of confused people. If I had to do it again, I'd probably just stick to the term limits. Can't imagine anybody who would be against term limits. I suppose career politicians are against them, but isn't that the problem? So, one of the many problems. So I ran, and this particular year was a little spicy. Maybe it was in 16. I really need to do some homework before I start these live streams. Anyways, and the scenic pit stuff was kind of going, and, so everything was kind of heightened. And, anyways, I'm at home and I'm upstairs and I hear honking and commotion downstairs. So I go downstairs. So this would have had to been 16 because I believe the people I bought it from, they were still living in the lower unit. And so they're Jehovah Witnesses and the people that live downstairs. And I looked outside and I saw this woman just screaming and swearing at them. And I'm like, this is weird, So I go downstairs and uh, the couple that lived downstairs went in the house. And I came down and this woman is just screaming and yelling at me. Well, prior to that, it was like 8 days before that, I believe. I have the 911 call, but or police call. Don't quote me. It might not have been the 911, or a 911 call, but it was definitely a police call. And there had been a woman outside of my house who had called the sheriff's department and said my horses were loose, and the horses weren't loose. I had just put up an electric fence in the front. And so I don't know, in the 911 call, this woman, who we now know is Lynette Rake, um, had called and is talking about Dana Zulik's horses being loose. And, so the officer's like, well, can you tell me what they look like? And, well, no, I can't tell. I can't see how many horses there are. Well, she couldn't see much. She just thought they were loose, decided to call me in. And I didn't really hear that interaction. All I know is the deputy came up to me afterwards to kind of tell me, that I just be kind of careful. That woman out there kind of seemed pretty upset, and he did use the word belligerent. So, but it was kind of weird, and there had been strange things happening around that time, that I now know aren't so strange. It's just sort of the modus operandi of the people who are anti-pit or something. I don't know what you want to call them. So, anyways, I forgot where I was at. Oh, I completely forgot where I was at, guys. But anyways, I don't know why tonight's episode seems so rough to talk about. Um, so basically, I'm looking for a way to. I'm having complete brain freeze. Give me 1 second. I'll be right back. Okay. Okay. So sometimes I just have to breathe a little bit and calm myself down. Okay. So I'm sitting at the house and I hear commotion and I go downstairs and um, this woman is upset with me. And I didn't think much about what had happened the 8 days before that or the week or whatever it was. And so she's screaming at me about my dog being loose, but my dog was in the yard and he jumps on me and whatever and go I put him in the house, or did he go in the house on his own? I don't remember that part. But I did remember as this woman's yelling at me, I thought, there was this weird thing happening before. And then there's uh, male private parts drawn with paint and syrup on my property, different times, not the same times. There had just constant honking, middle finger, my children being recorded while they're playing. I mean, just bizarre, just Alice in Wonderland. Like I like to reference that a lot. So here, I finally had somebody who was acting completely inappropriate. She had driven onto the property and kind of did like parked into a parking spot and like kind of backed out and like lined her car up to where um the front of her car, if she just drove forward, that's how she would leave the property. And so I stood there and I was standing in front of her car and I said, "Ma'am, I'm going to call the sheriff's department and, you know, let's see what they have to say because this was inappropriate." And she is like, "I already called the sheriff's department." Okay. Um, then I guess we're going to wait for them to come. And so I stood in front of her car and I smoked a cigarette, and she has me all on recording, right? So I think this went on for 2 or 3 minutes where I was standing there looking the other direction, not engaging, and just smoking a cigarette, waiting for the cops to get there. And all of a sudden, she just floors it. This woman floors it and runs me over in my damn driveway. Like, actually, what? It was crazy. We'll have to play the 911 calls because she, like, after this happens, she calls the sheriff's department, and you can hear my friend's 911 call in the background when she calls. So, like, the recording is like the recording of Lynette Rake calling the sheriff's department. You can hear my friend on with the other dispatcher and or 911 operator, I don't know what you call them. And it was clear that I had already been hit by the car when he called. But when uh, Lynette called, she said that I was being violent. And the dispatcher's like, "Well, what do you mean by violent?" And well, she's like, "Well, did she have any weapons?" And she's, "No." Did she threaten? No. She's just standing there. Anyways, I think she knew she did something wrong and she had to make it look like something it wasn't. And so the sheriff's deputy shows up. I don't remember if an ambulance came. I think they did. I refused service for another reason we'll go over another night. That'll be in an episode titled The Unredacted Police Report, also known as Gossip Girl Piece, or if you know, you know, right, Jim Healy? It's an unredacted police report that got circulated, and anyways, it ended up at a fire department meeting. Totally inappropriate. Um, it was funny to everybody that looked at it, I'm sure. But somebody had enough integrity to approach me about it after it happened. So I would have to say the village board should be ashamed of themselves for allowing that unredacted report to be not only read but then copied and passed on to other people in the fire department. And yes, there is a record where the sheriff's department acknowledges that Deputy Anderson, in fact, um, sorry, I have like an itch. Deputy Anderson gave Jim Healy, our village administrator, a copy of this unredacted police report. And so, anyways, because it had gone to the fire department, I was losing trust in my local government. It wasn't just the government. At that time, I didn't really know that um, the fire department was a nonprofit. I just had known from being from the community who's tied in with who and what families are who and who's got who's back and, you know, that kind of thing. So I refused service, and I ended up going to the emergency room on my own, and they did x-rays and the tests, and I had injuries consistent with being struck by a vehicle. Now, I wasn't like bleeding out or anything like that, but um, I did I did injure my back pretty good, and also my abdomen. But yeah, it's a fun time. So I refused to be transported, and the sheriff's department um, didn't report the incident the way it happened. In fact, I was originally issued a citation for disorderly conduct, and I remember being baffled by that. I'm like, wait a minute, this woman came onto my property, was screaming at the tenants, um, was screaming and swearing at me. She had gotten out of her car and everything, and I'm not gonna. What am I supposed to do? Be like, ma'am, please leave. I mean, yeah. So she runs me over, which, by the way, in case you're wondering, the driveway does go around. I mean, she very well could have backed up and gone out the other way of the driveway, but I guess running me over was a better option in her moment of complete, I don't know what the hell happened. So, anyways, so the sheriff's department writes up the report, and it's like, it was like nothing. She got cited with disorderly conduct. I got a disorderly conduct. And so I challenged mine, and it got dismissed for obvious reasons because it didn't really make much sense. Um, but as far as the running me over with the car, she didn't get assault. She didn't get attempted vehicular mats. I mean, come on, like who gets pissed off and just says, I'm gonna run this person over? Like, what? Yeah, and but she got her disorderly conduct lowered to a loud and unnecessary noise. And I did file for a restraining order based on the fact that she had been this woman, and I had the 911 call, police call, whatever it's called, um, to show that it was her. Uh, 8 days before the incident of her running me over, and then she also, you know, so to me that was a repeated thing. And they said, well, no, she didn't run you over last time. I would think if somebody comes on your property and runs you over with their car, that, there shouldn't be a pattern of said behavior. I feel like I feel like that's a one and done situation. Like, you struck me with your car and you're no longer allowed on the property. Like, if I don't know, it doesn't make sense to me. But sorry about that. I still don't have any guests. Boo. That's okay. We'll get it figured out. We're just starting off, guys. So, anyways, uh, I did end up filing a claim against her insurance company, who settled. Um, this woman did in fact, run me over with her car. She got angry. Um, my dog was loose. I have no reason to lie about anything, guys. I'm never going to claim to be perfect. I'm not saying that I've handled every situation that's come along perfect, because I am far from perfect and I have not handled everything perfect. Um, but she was afraid that Sherman, my dog, a yellow lab at the time, well, he's no longer with us, but he was a yellow lab at the time, of the incident, and she thought he was going to get struck by a train. Sherman was just going on a country stroll, and she followed him back and recorded it. And you can see Sherman, like, just kind of running the shoulder, coming back home. So for those of you that are just started listening, I live in a very rural area, but there's subdivisions, that pop up around, because we're pretty close to Milwaukee. So we're kind of like a suburb of Milwaukee, but it's mixed with, country and like a lot of other places. So I myself am on 40 acres, which is a pretty big chunk of property, but um, nonetheless, Sherman was being naughty and violating village ordinance by being a dog at large. And this just upset Lynette Rake enough to where she was very, very upset. So how does this all tie into the election and how this all happened? Well, this incident where she ran me over in the driveway happened 2 days after this election that I was on the ballot for. I believe I was running for 3 offices and those 2 referendums. So it was quite a busy election. And again, I will bring receipts for all of this stuff. I'm trying to figure out how to put up a website with links so that I also am going to get a whole new computer and lighting. Those of you who don't know me might not know I'm a photographer. So this lighting situation tonight is actually painful in my soul. But I promised myself and you that I would keep putting information out there. So I'm going to continue to do that. Um, anyways, gosh, I really got to stop going off on tangents. Okay, so this whole thing happens, and I see the police report, and I'm like, what? This doesn't. So I call, and I'm like, well, I don't understand why the police report isn't reflecting that I was struck by a vehicle. Well, Dana, from what I understand, you were only standing like a foot from the car. Sir, how how far from the car do I need to be for it to be considered dangerous, right? I mean, it's not like she bumped me and I sort of just like stumbled over to the side. Like, guys, she hit me. I folded over her hood, and by the time she was done, my knees were under the bumper. I mean, I can remember it like it was yesterday. I As much as I physically got hurt, man, that took a toll on me. But uh my friend used to say, grow your alligator skin, Dana, da da da. And I hadn't quite grown it thick enough at that point. I was just in this constant state of like, what is happening? Like, this seems. I actually Googled at one point what causes drama. So I was like, this just seems like an abnormal amount of drama, like just out of the blue. I'm being kicked out of businesses. I'm losing customers. People are yelling at me, and I I was I had no idea. what wheels were working behind the scenes with this whole stupid pit thing. Anyways, uh, so I'm at the house going through all my stuff, and I made the phone call to the sheriff's department, and I don't know who I talked to, um, but they're just basically sweeping it under the rug, making it sound like it wasn't a big deal. So I talked to Deputy Keith, the deputy that no longer is in Richfield. But I'm like, why does your police report read this way? And so, anyways, they just kind of really, really minimized everything. And then they also used the fact that I wasn't transported as evidence that it really wasn't. I wasn't struck by a car. Apparently, was their evidence. So I took my medical records from the emergency room visit, and I went to the sheriff's department, and I asked to speak to a supervisor. And I asked if I said, here's the documentation that shows that I have injuries consistent with being struck by a video, or I was thinking about a video, hold on, that I had injuries consistent with being struck by a vehicle, and uh, coupled with the 911 calls, and Lynette video recorded herself. She even records herself before hitting me saying, just move your ass, like in her car. Of course, she didn't show the video of me being struck, but. So I thought with all that stuff combined, there should be enough evidence that, this woman struck me. And they told me if I didn't, they said the case was closed. They would not be willing to look at any of the medical records. They were not willing to discuss the matter. And I was to leave, or they were just going to remove themselves from the conversation. And that's exactly what they did. He turned around, he walked away, and I was left standing in the lobby. I'm just thinking to myself, this has escalated to such a point that I'm being struck by a vehicle in my own driveway, and this is nothing to see here, guys. Nothing to see here, guys. Well, I find out that she's also a poll worker, and I thought that was just strange. You know, um, being a poll worker and getting so angry at another person over this local, like, thing going on. It's like, guys, can't we all just have, like, you don't have to agree with me, you don't have to, like me, but you cannot, ma'am, come onto my property and run me over with your vehicle, right? Like, that to me is just the part that, people, there's two sides to the story. Yeah, I recognize that, and I disagree with the other perspective, because the facts are she ran me over with her car. Those are facts. Dana, you shouldn't have been standing in front of the car. Well, I suppose victims, is that victim blaming? Is that what we call that? Like, oh, her shirt was cut too low, or I just never understood that mentality. Like, I wasn't doing anything other than, hey, I caught one of the people who's been part of whatever this craziness is, like, kind of like, see, I got one. Like, but I wasn't, I mean, I was just standing casually in my driveway, like, just standing. It was bizarre, the whole thing. Um, oh, the judge said I had a poor sense of self-preservation because I stood in front of the car, and I was like, well, ma'am, I've been in a war, so I suppose I would have to agree with. I mean, what is that even? Like, ma'am, you're supposed to be a coward, and ma'am, you should just let the people in the community come onto your property and just scream and yell at everybody and carry on, and it's your fault. You should just let it happen. You did this to you. Take responsibility. Anyways, So this woman now is a bartender at the local American Legion, and it's actually disheartening because I had tried to share the situation um, with some of the leadership there at the American Legion. I felt very uncomfortable being around her, um, bartending there just because of the circumstances. But I figured, oh, maybe she's sorry. Maybe we can just let bygones be bygones. And I guess that's me being me again. And that is not. I don't think that's how it's. I don't think that's how it's ever going to be. So she is not a fan of me. I am not a fan of her. I think that if someone in the community is going to be able to bartend at a place for veterans, that perhaps they shouldn't be running veterans over in their own driveways. I don't know what's up with all these damn flies tonight. What the heck? But anyways, yeah. I mean, let's start there. Like, support your veterans by not running them over in their driveway. And yeah, like that. Let's start there. Let's start at the let's not get homicidal, or like we should be reasonable. You should listen, Dana. Don't you know now that I hit you with my car? You're bad. You let your dog run away. I mean, she let and that's the whole thing. Well, she let her dog, and I'm like, and she's like, my dog is. I just picked my dog up from surgery, and he's in the car. Well, okay, you're more worried about your dog than the human being you just literally ran over in your driveway, in her own driveway. But here's the thing. I love animals. Oh my God, I love animals. I get it. I get it. I get it. I totally get it. But literally, you're more worried about your dog than the human you just vehicle. Like, she didn't open the door and ask me if I was okay. There was no like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do it. Nothing. Nothing. I'm still just baffled. So, anyways, um, I think it's super unfortunate that she is allowed to work at the American Legion, but that's just how I feel about it. And that's what this channel is for. I get to tell all my feelings. Um, I like to share in every episode how a little bit about mental health. So I um, do have a few things that I'm not sure how fully open. I'm usually super, super open about my mental health. I just don't want to start listing, the main thing that I deal with is PTSD and ADHD. It used to be, I also have OCD, but that's been in remission for quite some time. And I would love to share my experiences if there's anybody interested in knowing more about that. I'm a strong advocate for mental health awareness and believe that everybody should uh, talk about their mental health, because I think you'll find there's so much healing once just identifying the problem is the hardest part, right? Like, you can't fix what you don't know. And if you don't know that you have a problem, it's really hard to fix the problems that are going on around you. So I think it's good just for people in general to check in and have somebody that they can share their deepest, most inner thoughts with, and kind of find a way to stay balanced. I'm working on that. Got a long way to go, but I'm working on it. Um, there's more that I can share about the American Legion stuff. It's really not that big of an issue. I support the American Legion. But there's just been some things that are unfortunate, and it's just, I'm not upset with the American Legion itself or even individuals. What upsets me is from the beginning of this whole entire thing, and you'll hear me probably say it in every episode, when you can't win on an issue, you attack the person. And who I am, my business, my name, Dana Zulik, Dana Zulik Photography. And the Scenic Pit is tied into my name, and so the rumors and loss of a basic credibility in the community. I don't know. All kinds of things. It's just been something. But makes me feel sad though. It really does. Like self-compassion is another good thing, guys. But anyways, I don't blame the American Legion. I'm upset that our local government has abused its powers to misinform the community about the scenic pit. And that's really what led to this incident of me being run over in the driveway, basically. Oh, I've got one guest. Hello. If you have any questions, just post it in the chat. Tonight's not going so hot for me, but that's okay. We're getting there. So we're talking about getting run over the time that I got run over in my driveway. Fun. And so basically after that happened, that's what I was talking about, the American Legion, and then why things affected. Okay. I got so excited, guys, that, okay, now I don't have a live person watching. Okay. They're like, oh no, can she see who I am? We had one, guys. But anyways, it's sort of this misinformation that spread around the community that created this chain, like snowball effect, where it was like, oh, can you believe she's doing this? And can you believe she's doing that? And can you believe she's doing this? And then it was just all these rumors. And so, the ball was already rolling before I even knew basically what was going on. So I'm going to probably keep this one short tonight, guys. That's the story about me being run over in my driveway. I hate the lighting tonight. I think I'm going to run to a camera shop tomorrow and grab some studio lighting. Because as I like to say, this is a go and the no column. I mean, look at this. Like, could I find any less flattering light? Like, Dana, put on the light and make yourself look as bad as possible. It's okay. So the next topic we're going to be covering is probably going to be how the Village of Richfield is spending tax dollars on a case that, if it went the way Richfield wanted it to go, would affect your rights to concealed carry. So that's my little teaser. So if you guys want to watch another episode and learn how Richfield is on the wrong side of certain gun rights, I guess you could say. Yeah, we'll talk about it. It sounds like a far stretch, but I promise that episode I will be super prepared, because that one I'm going to have to walk you guys through all the different steps. But yeah, we'll go over how Richfield is using tax dollars to fight a case that could affect whether or not people in Wisconsin conceal carry. But okay, we'll talk about that next time. Have a good night, and I love every single one of you, whether you believe it or not.